I am.
We're good to go.
All right. So we have a community work session to start tonight's meeting off.
Yeah, and Krista can give some more details on that if you'd like.
Yeah, perfect. I was just gonna turn it right over to you. So yes, Ms. Floberg is gonna lead this work session before our meeting begins.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be passing it over to Dina Capito shortly. Dina is a master's in public health student from UPenn, who's here in Denali for the summer. And she's been working with the Denali Borough on conducting a community health needs assessment to work on identifying, what the access and resources the borough has and does not have, where disparities and gaps exist, to allow us to better advocate and seek funding for hope for more and better services in the area of public health. So Dina has been conducting focus groups with different important sectors, Rail Belt Mental Health, the PAs from Canyon Clinic and Clear Clinic, National Park Service rangers, churches, nonprofit groups. And so we thought the assembly would be a great body to have her ask some questions as well to help guide this effort. So Dina, I know has somewhat a spotty internet at Parkside housing sometimes. So Dina, if your video turns off, that's just fine. But I'll hand it over to Dina to take it away and start this focus group. So thank you for letting us start the meeting off with this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dina, for joining us.
Everyone, I just wanted to check, do we have half an hour for this focus group or an hour?
I think, we'll start with half an hour and see where the conversation's going. If there's some great, conversation and leading questions, let's go longer, but we'll maybe evaluate half an hour and see how it's moving along.
Okay.
That's fine.
So first of all, do you think, or anybody can answer these questions, by the way, so you don't have to ask, just chime in whenever you want. So does the Denali Borough Assembly, both in terms of the environment and activities, promote physical activity, access to healthy food, and or provide resources for tobacco cessation or chronic disease management? So basically, how does the borough promote health within the community?
I mean, I guess we have a lot of nonprofit groups that promote youth activities. That would be my first answer. Anybody else would be great, I guess, at this point. No?
Employer. Along those lines, I'd agree, Krista, that our contributions to nonprofits who support, for example, smoking cessation. We support Rail Belt Mental Health, who advocates within the schools along those lines, and we support youth sports groups through Healy Hockey Association. We've contributed both capital and operating to that organization. And we kind of have a nascent Parks and Rec that we're standing up and working on some early projects, such as to promote outdoor activities, such as the Antler Ridge Trail. So those are a few things that we're actively working on.
In the playground.
The playground.
And for equity, for a disabled, swing set. Yeah.
So does the borough provide grants to such organizations that we mentioned?
Yeah, including Neighbor to Neighbor, which is a emergency funding kind of basis, needs-based operation. There's a Lions Club that's accepted government funding that also helps families in need as they arise. But
Mhm.
as far as a specific program per the list of items you've mentioned, not exactly might be the answer for your question, but also, we have a keen effort to support folks here.
Mhm.
Yeah, and furthermore, on the grant programs, we had to have a matching grant program that has funded a fair amount of infrastructure. And that infrastructure, I would say, has been weighted towards outdoor activities, from, Healy Hockey to McKinley Community Center's playground upgrades, the basketball court there, that was all done with borough matching grant monies.
And how does the borough participate in the public policy process to highlight the need for community health behavior changes? So how does the borough promote health through policy, whether that's advocating for changes at the state policy or making your own policy changes?
I think, like the mayor said, that we stood up the Parks and Rec for that type of stuff, to be able to have a funding source to be able to promote more outdoor activities, and like working with the DOT to put in the Antler Creek trailhead and stuff as some of that as well. So I think our policies, that's what we're definitely geared towards, is trying to get more outdoor activities and more people to come do them up here.
That's great, Talon. And I'd also add that we've been pretty engaged with some statewide organizations promoting outdoor recreation and access to the outdoors through the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that we've been actively working on. We're going to have a Denali chapter in there, and promoting and advocating for Alaska Long Trail funding and other advocacy efforts that would advance outdoor recreation funding.
I actually saw you in the newspaper article about that, about the Alaska Long Trail proposition. So that's cool.
Yeah, we put some time into that one.
Cool. So does the borough help coordinate the child wellness checkups that were happening at the school, or was that a state department thing without the borough's involvement?
Mr. Mayor.
Good question. The borough, as I know, back in those years, I wasn't the mayor at the time when those were offered, but my kids did participate in them, and it was a really good service. I don't believe the borough did play a direct role in the provision of that service.
Do you know when that stopped? What year?
Good question. Right after my kids got all their shots.
Okay. Well, I'm supposed to meet with the school board, so I can ask them. And what are some of the barriers that you think residents of the Denali Borough face when trying to access healthcare resources?
Logistics. I mean, we are 2 hours away from the nearest hospital, specialty doctor's office, 4 hours away to anything specialty other than emergency-based needs. And then again to Seattle for anything important, super neurological, burn, emergency. I mean, yeah, like logistics are a huge barrier for us here as far as getting healthcare. And then resources otherwise, being network or what if you were in the insurance world, but then again, financially, if you need assistance, can you afford it? So I think those are kind of standards for places elsewhere anyways, but particularly here with the 2.5 to 6 hour commute one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor. Good. Question.
Any other barriers? Or I guess another question is, what do you think are the major health concerns within members of the community? So that can be based on your personal experience or your experience working in the government here.
Anybody?
The one thing I see is kind of like going along with the logistics, being able to just go and visit the same physician or medical provider, whatever it may be, in a timely manner over and over again, like you might need for physical therapy and other things like that. Whatever the specialty thing they're providing would be one of them, of the ability just to get there in the amount of times that it's needed in a good amount of time.
I mean, just going to a dentist appointment is a day off of work because it's 5 hours to get there and back.
Yeah.
Mhm. And with regards to the services provided by the Denali Borough, do you think there are any barriers that residents face when accessing services that the borough provides? So that could be maybe they're not aware of services, or there could be any kind of language restriction or financial. But are there any barriers to public participation that you see within the borough?
I think that the number of services the borough has ever officially provided have been so limited that it's kind of hard to answer your question, but also with those provided services with the COVID testing and the COVID vaccinations, not only were they provided free, but they were also on like a rotating schedule. So with what little pieces of health services the Denali Borough has undertaken, I would argue that we've done a pretty good job making sure that they were accessible to everybody.
I think everybody knew that they were available, like for the testing and the vaccines.
Right, yeah, I've
And
seen
there
it
was a
on
lot of-
Facebook
yeah.
and there's postings in the post offices, and
I don't think there's
everybody
anybody
got
in
a
the borough that didn't
mailer.
know.
And at that point it's their choice. But I think, like I said, with the limited scope of things we have here as the Denali Borough, that we've done a pretty good job of making that transparent and available.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And also just note structurally that it is the state of Alaska who holds public health powers. And we were operating some of those services, under emergency situation. And yeah, made them readily available. And I think people, were well aware of their offerings.
Mhm. And do you think that members of the community would be interested in being involved in efforts towards improving their community's health?
I'll open that to anybody.
I think there would be. I think if there was something put together, that there would be either people from groups or individuals that would be interested in helping to ease the burden of getting medical care here.
And did anybody else want to chime in? Okay. And do you think that your community has access to healthy food, and why or why not?
Mm,
I think since 2017, a lot more.
I mean,
It's been a lot better.
since the institution of Three Bears,
Yeah.
it's been a little easier.
Expensive food.
Expensive, like that's kind of where my mind went, was with like financially the barriers to being able to afford the food in Three Bears, maybe, but
Yeah, versus the fuel now to drive to Fairbanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right,
Right. To
especially
get,
versus fuel prices
you
now.
know, proper groceries, especially if you're interested in organic offerings. Three Bears does contain that, so that is Definitely a recent development that's positive.
I'll add that we have access to organic and healthy proteins in wild meat and fish as well.
Mm.
There's the farmer's market and some farms in the area.
And what do you consider some of the strengths of the Denali Borough? That can be human capital or resources or the built environment.
Great place to live, work, and play. In many ways, we do enjoy, a quality of life that others that's hard to find in a lot of the country, and we have functioning institutions.
Yeah, we have a well-supported school district, a work-life balance in most cases. If you spread it out through the 12 months of the year, at least.
Consider it's all in the summer and not in the winter.
I think one of the strengths are more so that our people, we take care of one another, and the organizations that exist do make great effort to keep tabs on folks who may or may not be struggling and try to provide them resources within the borough or within the state otherwise to make ends meet.
And I think just the surroundings encourage activity and exercise and a sort of healthy lifestyle in that way.
Absolutely. You should, I wish I would start counting the kids I see riding their bikes to catch up to their kids on the four-wheelers right now. There's a lot of them. But yeah, no, I mean, we enjoy a remote life and it has its challenges, but I think collaboratively we all make it work. Otherwise we wouldn't be here.
I'd add that we have a diverse economy between tourism and
Jared.
energy resources and the military installation.
Your microphone, Jared, is super washed for some reason.
Bummer.
We can't hardly understand you.
That is weird.
Is that better?
No,
I mean, we can hear you speaking, but it sounds like you're under a glass of water.
I'll log back out and log back in.
But I can hear
It's even
you.
worse.
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I think the folks virtually can hear you just
Oh,
fine, including
great.
myself.
Is it our
Yeah,
speaker?
he's coming through clearly on Zoom.
Our speaker went out.
Yeah, we can't hear Clay or Dina or anybody now. You guys all sound washed to us.
Hang on.
Mm.
Technical difficulty, time out.
There we
Oh,
go. There we go.
Jared.
We found now.
Oh, hey.
All right.
Okay, I'll turn the table back over to Jared since he seems to instigate the issue there.
Oh, he just jumped.
Oh, and
right
he
back
jumped
in.
out.
Yeah.
Okay,
It wasn't you, Jared.
it wasn't you, Jared, we promise.
Oh, I'm glad we're coming through now. Good.
Yeah, you guys are back. Some sort of cable half unplugged over
We got
here.
unplugged, yeah.
Here comes Jared. We're gonna hang on and let Jared restart his statement there.
Sorry. I'm trying to fix things and I think I'm making it worse.
Jared, are you coming back, bud?
I was thinking about it. Can you hear me better?
We can,
Yes.
yeah. It was actually on our end. We had a cable malfunction.
Oh, good.
So if you want to kind of restart from where you jumped in, I feel like that was kind of where the meeting got interjected there.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say that we have a diverse economy between the energy sector and tourism and the military operations here. That for a community of our size, I feel like we have a few healthy legs to stand on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And what do you consider main challenges within the Denali Borough? And are there any needs that are not fully being addressed?
I'm going to open up that to the floor as well.
It's something we've already talked about, is accessibility, especially in the winter. Roads are icy, so being able to get to and from physical activities, doctor type activity type things, just makes it that much harder with the distance that we have and the terrain that we go through for winter. And that's just the worst part. Summer still, it's just long. So accessibility, shortening it in any way, it would always make it better.
Mhm.
Tag on to that in terms of needs. I'm at a mayor's conference today, and I was talking with DOT just a couple hours ago about our needs for connectivity and ways to move about our communities. And I see people walking in the ditches all the time, and many places that's the only place to be. And you know, we do have needs in terms of infrastructure, especially as it relates to getting around our community.
I'd also like to tag on to there that the need for year-round housing.
Yeah.
We have a lot of families who come here in the summer with the Alaskan dream in mind, and we don't have a resource or an outlet for them to really, you know, dig their stakes in and get started out here. It's quite a challenge.
Mhm. And are there any assets within the Denali Borough that are not being used to their full potential? That could be human resources or physical spaces.
Anybody?
Housing front, I'd offer Denali Borough lands, and you know, we are working towards some planning efforts that could better utilize our lands to help alleviate you know, the housing crunch. But it's going to be a process to get there. But we are embarking on that. So our lands are underutilized, definitely.
Mhm. And
I would,
go ahead.
just on that same one, I think that there is a, you know, just in terms of the housing situation, the way kind of the vacation home rental industry has taken over, that there's kind of a conflict between, you know, healthy tourism industry and the available housing, so that like in the wintertime, there is, you know, maybe more housing available for families, you know, maybe better quality than some of the houses that families are living in, but they're kind of targeted towards the nightly rental business. So in terms of like the way you frame that question, I think that those resources or that infrastructure is there, but you know, if the idea is that we want everybody to live in high quality housing, that, you know, maybe that there's a misallocation there, you know, from a health or housing perspective.
Are there any restrictions about rental houses here, both in terms of state or local laws?
I would have to defer to the mayor.
Borough doesn't impose any additional laws or requirements beyond what the state has. And the state doesn't have like a nightly limit, no.
Do you have to register as like a landlord or a business somewhere? Or you can just have Airbnb without any, are there any legal restrictions? That's my question.
You do need to register as a business, and any business in the state needs to get a business license. And if you're operating in overnight accommodations, then yes, you do also additionally need to register with the borough as an overnight accommodations provider and collect and remit taxes.
Mhm. And is there any kind of cap on that, or is the number not capped?
A limit to the number of overnight
There-
accommodations providers within the borough? No, we do not have any such limit.
Okay. And do you feel that there is a high level of social support within the Denali Borough, both in terms of community members and services supporting the community?
I think it's a very supportive community in a lot of ways. Neighbors help neighbors here. And we do also have those organizations that do assist in times of need as well. I think of it as a supportive community, but at the same time, the social safety net may be stronger in other places.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that coming from the Pacific Northwest to here, there's a stark difference in the amount of community involvement or check-in entanglement, whatever you want to refer to it as, compared to being in a city or in even an outskirted area of a major city. Like the mayor mentioned, there are plenty of nonprofit organizations that are available to folks that are in need. And that is done on like a income basis or a needs basis or even a situational basis as those things kind of arise. We've definitely, risen to the occasion on multiple different accounts when something new or obscure has come through the community. And yeah, I mean, for being as little and as young as we are, I think we do a pretty good job looking out for one another.
But it's always sort of balanced by, there's like an undercurrent of self-sufficiency among Alaskans in this culture of, being self-sufficient. So
Oh, absolutely. By the time they're to a point of needing
right.
assistance, they've already depleted, their personal resources. And that's maybe an assumed fact at that point, but yeah.
And I would say that sorry, did I cut you off?
Go ahead, Mark. No.
Sorry. I would say that the people who particularly live here understand there's risk involved. We know we're not in the city, and that risk comes with the ability to gain a lot or lose everything. But at the same time, we know that by coming out here and doing that we need to be, if we want to be successful, we have to be successful as a community to help our neighbors. And I just pointed out that the Clear Fire was a big shining example of that, I think.
Yeah, I would add that we don't have, we don't pay a lot of taxes to provide services to one another. Most of our tax base comes from, tourism or industry or, sharing from the state or the federal government. And I think that's different than a lot of municipalities, but I think that we have like sweat equity in a lot of instances in terms of the services we do provide. And the borough does help our nonprofit sector as well, but just the volunteerism, the number of different organizations and boards that provide those community services are really diverse and really well supported in a lot of their kind of in each of their roles, whether it is the local fire departments and emergency services or service groups or churches, kind of whatever that is. But I think that there is a risk for new folks coming in or people that aren't connected into those kind of those existing communities and those existing support networks, that there is a challenge there. Once you kind of find your spot and are able to build your community here, I think you're able to find some of that support that gets in there. But depending on the situations that bring people in and out of here, I think that can be challenging based on those individual circumstances for sure.
And would you say that the Denali Borough is overall healthy, and why or why not?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
I did that.
As an organization, we're definitely healthy because of our great people, great staff, engaged public, and the number of people who step up to serve our various roles within the borough. Are a number of reasons why we're healthy. I think we do have a pretty good reputation throughout the state, actually, as really, the little borough that can.
Choo choo.
I like that.
Choo choo.
That's good.
Are there any changes that you think would make the borough healthier as a community? Anything that we haven't mentioned so far, or anything you'd like to reiterate?
Specific to health, a broader range of services here. Specifically, as Assemblymember Alexander mentioned, go all the way to Fairbanks for simple cleaning. To have those services available here, and there are a number of other medical type services that we would be healthier if we had more access to them here.
A pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to keep you too late. If there's anything anyone else wants to add, I think would be useful for the community health needs assessment. This will be used to help identify gaps in resources within the Denali Borough and best direct funding to support the health of the community. So if there's anything anyone else wants to add, feel free. And if not, I'll let you continue with the meeting.
Anybody else for the last minute chime?
I guess how do you plan to use this information, and it will be shared in some kind of format with the borough when it's done?
Yeah, so I will be giving it to Teresa and Clay, and it'll be shared with you all. If they want to make it public on their website or distribute it in any way, that's up to them. And it will be used to best determine how to use funds to best support the health of the community, and also advocate for state and federal funding for bigger kinds of health resources within the community.
Great, thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Dina. I'm glad we got this group and had another great productive focus group to gain and glean more information on the range of what our borough has and could have. So thank you for taking the time, and thank you for letting us start your meeting with this work session.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And then just as a note, before you sign off, I think one of the understated needs of this community would be activities for teenagers, indoor or otherwise, frankly, but just, teenage, young adult resources that don't necessarily include the breweries or the restaurants that host those such endeavors. Would just be another note for me. But thank you so much for your time and your energy to come here tonight with us.
Just a question about this recording. Is this going to be available online, or should I email Teresa about that?
It is online right now. It is live.
Okay, and then it's going to be saved there.
Yep, and I'll make sure you know where to find it, Dina. It'll be on a YouTube saved video for the public to view.
Thank you. Well, thank you all, and have a nice rest of your meeting.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Dina.
so much.
Dina.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So with that, I will call an end to the work session at 6:38 PM. And I will call to order the regular meeting, with which I would ask the mayor to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, gladly. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice.
Thank you. And with that, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Talon Shreve,
Here.
David Alexander,
Here.
Joe Chatfield, Jeff Stanger, Dominic Canali.
Here.
Thank you. Lisa Minor, Mark Johnson,
Here.
Krista Zapone,
Here.
Jared Zimmerman,
Here.
Jason Quorum.
Move to excuse absent members.
Second.
Has been moved to excuse our absent members and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Consider those members excused. At this point, I would like to open it to public comment. During this section of the agenda, the assembly will receive comments from the public. When providing your comment, please include your full name and limit your testimony to approximately 3 minutes per person. Do we have any digital comments? We do have one here in the audience. I think you can see. So come on up and introduce yourself, sir.
Okay, good evening, members of the Denali Borough Assembly. My name is Doyle Holmes. I live in Willow, and I own that Willow True Value Hardware and all that old town. Sometimes I think it owns me though, but in any case, I'm running for the State House for District 30. I have one opponent. That's the incumbent now. And I think when you consider the two of us, I would ask you to look at experience and how you're going to be treated with somebody that knows nothing or somebody that has some experience. I was on the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly for 11 years, longer than anybody in history. And I was deputy mayor for 3 years. During that time, I worked on Title 29, so I'm very familiar with that. And we managed to build 13 schools in that 11 years. We kept the tax level the same. We got rid of personal property tax. We decreased the airplane tax, inventory tax on businesses. So that kind of gives you an idea of my experience with municipal government. And looking forward to representing the Denali Borough. A little bit of history that I know about it. I don't know whether you know how the Denali Borough came about or not, but back in the 80s, our borough manager down there decided that he wanted to annex Mount McKinley and most of this area up here. And immediately that caused a furor up here, and everybody got a petition together. I think Johnny Gonzalez was the mayor back then. And it didn't take very long to approve the Denali Borough. As I was not in favor of that, by the way. Okay, we had enough problems down there. And now with District 30, going all the way to Anderson from Point McKenzie, that's going to be a challenge and a half. But I decided to drive up so that you could get an idea of what I look like and what I can offer you as a House representative. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Any questions for Mr. Holmes? Okay,
No comments.
and no other public comments. Okay, well, thank you again for your time, Mr. Holmes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to stick around for the school district report and ask if there's no one has any questions. I'd like to head back to Willow tonight.
Sure. Yeah, you stick around as long as you want to. Absolutely. We appreciate your
I
effort.
know, but 2 o'clock's a little rough.
All right. So with that, I would move to the approval of tonight's agenda.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Second it.
Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all of those in favor? Okay. If anybody's opposed, speak now. That would make our agenda approved. Moving on to the minutes from our previous meeting.
Move to approve the minutes of the January 8th public hearing and regular meeting.
Second that.
The minutes from June 8th meeting have been moved to approve and been seconded. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that moves us into reports. The first report being our partner report, in which we have Ms. Juzak here in person. And I don't know who's on here.
I don't see anyone else right now.
Okay, so Ms. Juzak,
All righty. Good evening.
welcome back.
My brain has been so foggy lately. I was like, did I totally space a meeting and just not show up? Or what has happened? So I'm glad that we skipped last month.
Right.
Even though June doesn't feel that far away. So I'll start with Visitor Center. We are already working on vacation planner for 2023. So that's taken up most of my chunk there. We've seen some exciting growth in the utilization of the Visitor Center over the summer months. Going into the summer, we were averaging between 9,000 and 10,000 visitors on the website per month. The last couple months, we've been up to 16. So we're seeing some pretty significant growth in that aspect. And from all reports down on the boardwalk, that has been well received. With somebody there in the evening hours from 3 to 8 to meet and greet, answer questions. And so that is something we definitely hope to continue with for the next year and maybe even possibly staff more if we can find the bodies. And we have plans in the works also to, besides that vacation planner, to kind of go back to, I don't know if any of you remember that trifold map we had, but create one of those additionally for when people are actually here and on site. And we'd utilize our QR codes and some of those new things that we have had on our signage and stuff. But there seems to be two pretty distinct different groups that we need to serve, the ones who are planning and the ones with boots on the ground. So on the chamber side, of course, this weekend is Blueberry Festival. So that's what's consumed my last week. Starting at noon on Saturday up at Idle Lake, we have the children's time. And so there's raft rides, wagon rides, petting zoo, games, space painting, all that kind of stuff. We've gone back to our pre-COVID model. So there will be a barbecue for that time as well. Weather is looking decent. So just plan on coming. And then beginning at 4, there's a break. And then from 3 to 6, but beginning at 4, Epic Kayak Ultimate will be coming down from Fairbanks again. It's free to play, so grab some friends, go sign a couple waivers. They've got all the gear and everything people need. Fun experience out there on the lake. And then at 6, the evening session begins. Music starting at 7 o'clock. Cami from Miami is going to open, and then followed up with Mark Brown and the Blues Crew, which we got great feedback from last year. Food, beer garden. So we hope to see you all. This is our biggest fundraiser, helps us keep the lights on and the power going, in addition to the borough grants for the year. So much appreciated for attendance and just a good time. We could all use a little fun. Additionally, I got some good news today. I know we've been working on the community well project. Initial reports were that we didn't have a good survey of our lot. We finally got that done, and the surveyor connected with the people that installed the well and the septic, and it turns out we do meet commercial code, which we were worried about. The design of the septic is a little atypical, and but the discharge meets that 200 feet marker between well and discharge. So Space-wise, we're good, which means we can skip either putting in a new well or moving the septic. And now we can focus on the engineering report on what we need to do to update our system. And so some of the borough grant from this last round will go toward that. And that's probably as far as we're going to get in this year. But I've also communicated with Clay and Teresa that if they see other grants coming through in their works that would fit that model, to shoot them our way. And so we're making some progress on that, in addition to having a final plat of our property, which is a lot more than I thought.
Good to know.
Starting September 1st, I've been working with the Small Business Development Center with some of the Alaska Community Foundation grant money. We will have from September 1st to August 31st of next year, we have a dedicated online channel. There's business training classes, as well as what we call upskill classes that are going to be available for free to residents. They'll have to register with the chamber, but things on there, basic things such as how to use Google Docs and Sheets and those sort of things, to interview skills, to a lot of other soft job skills. So look for that information coming out pretty shortly. And then there will be a business resiliency and oh shit moment planning. Fairbanks attorney who's coming down next month to give that on as well. So I think after the last few years with all the uh-ohs that we have seen coming through the door, that that's something every business needs, is how to plan for it and get through those unexpected moments. I think that's all I've got. Any questions?
Oh, great work as always. Looking forward to the Blueberry Festival.
Yeah, well, see you there. I'll probably be serving beers. So,
Definitely.
all right.
Awesome, thank you. The next set of reports we have are from the Redistricting Committee. Who's that?
Dominic.
For Mr. Dominic Canal. I'd like to lean to you for the introduction.
Greetings. Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Great, okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, so first of all, just want to give a great deal of thanks to the committee for a high level of participation and engagement, which allowed for an efficient yet deliberative process. And a huge thank you to Borough Clerk Amber Renshaw for all the hard work, countless hours in developing and constructing the many options for committee consideration. And also thanks to Mayor Walker for his guidance, context, and advice as the committee defined the scope of its work. And with your packet, 2 resolutions that the Redistricting Committee passed are included for your review. So I won't go through those in too much detail, but I will recap our process.
There we go.
Where did he go?
Ooh.
He's gone.
Mr. Denali, come back.
Here it comes.
I was so engaged. I didn't even notice he disappeared.
That's not a good review of the process.
Yeah.
Poof, it disappeared.
You actually did more than it sounds like you did.
Yeah.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my internet connection. I'm in Tucson and it's monsoon season, and we've got a severe thunderstorm alert that just hit the phone. So hopefully I can get through this review report before I get cut off. Anyway, we did hold 3 meetings in April, May, and June. April's meeting looked at 3 different options, 2 of which included 5 districts. One of those 7 seats, 7 elected seats. The other 5 districts serving 9 elected seats. And then there was also an option of 4 districts, reducing 5 to 4 with 9 elected seats. That option, the 4 district option, was eliminated that night. And so for the next meeting, the goal was to come back.
Just when we were gonna hear the goal.
It seems to be loading back up. I'm gonna use this weird time to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. You there?
Yeah,
Yeah, sir.
we're here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. So again, yeah, we started off with 3 options. We discounted the one that reduced 5 districts to 4. From there, we decided that, our charge was to put together 2 different options that can be put forward to the assembly for consideration and review and approval before going to the voters. One option to include a 7-seat elected body format, and the other a 9-seat elected body. At our second meeting in May,
How can computers be so wonderful and crappy at the same time? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible.
yeah, here I am again. I'm here again.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Oh, hello. Yeah. So at May's meeting, basically, we did 2 things. We, looked at how to address the number of seats on the different bodies, the planning commission in particular, where it's been difficult to staff, for lack of a better word, 9 seats. And so because the planning commission are seats that are appointed, they're not elected seats, it made sense to look at a resolution that would allow the assembly to define the composition of the planning commission. So that was one resolution we did approve. The other, we did approve a resolution
This is the first for us, so I don't know.
Okay, I'll I'll just go ahead and wrap this up. Essentially, the work product again is reflected in 2 resolutions. And at our June meeting, we did pass the resolution that is in effect in front of the assembly tonight in the form of 2 different ordinances to put forward to the voters for 2 different options for redistricting, a 7-seat option and a 9-seat option, while retaining the 5-district composition of the borough. So if that was digestible for everybody listening, and there are any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I think we'll probably get into the detail of the different options and so forth when we get to the ordinances.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Canali. I'm sorry to have you interjected so much by technology, but appreciate your effort and report tonight. Is he the only one? Good to go. Okay. So that will move us to the planning commission report. And I believe I saw somebody on here.
Susan.
Miss
Yeah.
Brown. Thank you. Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Take it away for us.
Okay. So our last meeting was in June, and we had a work session before the regular meeting that actually lasted twice as long as the regular meeting. We were talking about or trying to determine which municipal lands to focus our planning efforts on first, because of the already discussed need for more housing in the area. So we did, I'll kind of try to make it short for you. Our discussion narrowed it down to the Yannert municipal lands and actually the sub area 1 of that parcel, which is on page 79 of the Denali Borough Land Management Plan from 2020. It's got maps and all kinds of information on that parcel if you want to look into it. And, you know, our meeting is recorded, so you can go back and listen to 2.5 hours of that meeting if you want more detail. It's basically the land, it's Karma Ridge is in the southern part of this section. So 1 mile square section, 31 of, I don't know what township or range it's in. So Karma Ridge is in the south, and then Steve Jones thinks that there's the ability to access the rest of that section. And also there's 4 sections to the east of that the borough owns or will own. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that ownership, but it's borough chosen land. So, but since there's road access to that one part, that would be the focus to get that going. And the other place, we narrowed it down to these 2 places to focus on first. And the other is the ridge that is west of the Parks Highway. So you think of going north out of Healy to the Stampede Road, there's that ridge to the west that kind of runs along the highway. It could be accessed on the zip line road and then have a road along that ridge and parcels there for homes to be built and have it be kind of a loop. It would join the Stampede Road to the north. That's kind of what we're thinking. And we're having a work session next week at the beginning of our meeting to focus more on that, to kind of get more information, because Steve Jones had lots of information that was developed in the early 80s when the state wanted to do a gigantic subdivision in that same area of the Yannert. And the locals kind of cut it down to the village view that actually happened. So there is information out there on the soils, and it's even been surveyed, he says, so we wouldn't have to survey it again. But that needs to be looked into. So yeah, those are our 2 places that we're going to focus on. Then we had a public comment from Kyle Davis with the Denali ATV tour business. He wants us to reconsider our closure of access to Dry Creek from the Carpet Road. There are 2 access points, and last August we were presented Black Diamond, or the Usabellis were there asking to close off one of them. They wanted to do a loop that would be a one-way loop and would keep ATVs from heading into the private land that's to the south of Dry Creek there. Anyway, we did approve it, but it hasn't been done as far as I know. It hadn't been done in June. So he was wanting us to reconsider closing off that access point because with the weather and all and different rains and things happening, one or the other of those access points is usually the better, and it varies through the years and through 1 year, I guess. So he's just asking that we don't close off that point. So the idea there is to have the interested parties meet with us next week, I guess. I don't know if this is actually happening, but that was our thought back in June, was to get together with people and see what we could figure out. And then really the main meeting, we just, we had reports from different people. I think you got the great report from Teresa Floberg on the Antler Creek project. That was really cool to see. So besides those, we just sent you Planning Commission Resolution 22-03 that you're going to be working on tonight. So that's my report.
Okay, so is it my understanding that the planning commission recommends 22-03
Yes.
or 22-02?
Sorry, 22-03. Yeah, the vote was 6-1 in favor of that.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Ms. Brown, for joining us tonight.
Sure.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments for Ms. Brown of the Planning Commission? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the school district report. Mr. Polta is with us here in the audience. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Well, it's great to be here, but I was going to share that actually Tuesday, the 23rd is going to be a far greater day because rather than being with the Borough Assembly, we'll actually have our students back in our classes. And that's the day that we're looking forward to. And again, that's Tuesday, the 23rd. So get those last camping trips in, get those last, scabs on the knees, get everything ready because we are looking forward to seeing you guys.
Great.
A couple appreciations to start us off. Really want to just also take some time to thank the Borough Assembly and the Borough. We had lunch with Mayor Walker and Connie McMaster, your treasurer, and they delivered the check to the local school district. And this is for the required local contribution, a little bit over $1 million. And again, that's kind of determined by the valuation of the property in our borough. And then the additional contribution, talking and working with Clay for this year, we're looking for the borough to provide that in December once we have kind of like all the finalization of enrollment. That should end any uncertainty if we happen to be above enrollment or below enrollment, because that number is capped based on that overall revenue that we get from the state, with the general obligation or commitment from the borough to be about at that cap. And that's about what we've asked for in the past and what you've historically been able to do, except for that first COVID or one of the COVID interrupted years. I think it's the last year that we had. The other appreciation is just really want to thank each and every person that worked on the clear fire, whether that was somebody that was serving meals to the crew or someone that was actually out digging the lines or running the dozers to help protect the structures for all the people out there. Really appreciated all the work that everyone put in to support that effort. Not too big of a report, but do want to give some updates on finances. We have done our preliminary closeout of FY22. And in looking at that, we did overestimate some of our expenses as we were approaching the end of the year. And so I think last time we met, we were projecting a deficit of about $900,000. And that was reduced to about the $600,000 deficit. We overestimated our expenses in fuel and heating. And talking with Rena, we just think we started kind of panicking as to what was going to keep happening when we started seeing those increases in March and April. We also had some curriculum materials that we were able to move off of our operating budget into grant funds. And that freed up then our operating funds. And then we had a set of computer purchases that we didn't complete in the fiscal year. And so the same purchases are happening, but they're happening in FY23. And so that's what's lowered our projected deficit for this year. We're currently doing our virtual site visit for our audit. And so that will start that process of giving us that absolute firm and final number of FY22. As we look and project in FY23, we're already starting to see those changes from our approved budget to what we're starting to look at with our projections. Again, our budget was approved by the school board in February. So we're seeing changes in our revenue projection, which are upward right now because of different legislative action that was taken. And we see a kind of overall, also with some softness in enrollment figures that we're looking at, probably an increase in revenue of a little bit under $200,000. But we're also looking and seeing adjustments and projected increases in expenses in several areas. Some of those key areas are increases with our staffing costs, increases in the student allotments that we made to our peak homeschool students, and then a more refined but still concerning increase to our fuel and energy costs for the year. And when we look at those, we see at this point with these soft figures and projected increase in expenses of over $400,000, we kind of do the math on those figures. We're actually looking at starting the year projecting a deficit of about $250,000. So when we look at that reduced deficit from the previous year, that's good for us. That means that our unrestricted carryover is higher than we anticipate, which could help us cushion this. We're also very early in the year. We know there's going to be a lot of changes. Those are soft figures. At the same time, I tell people I never like to kind of start the year going, oh, we're a little bit down. Usually we like to, at least this time of the year, be saying, yep, we're still looking even, or maybe we've seen some positive movement. That's not the news that we have right now. Some other things to share with you, kind of talking about facilities. I mentioned the appreciation for the Anderson fire crew. They were using the Anderson School both for logistics and for housing support up there. And then we have a rental agreement with them that covered that and actually allowed kind of the usage of the school to grow as their needs grew from, I think the initial crew responding was a 12-person crew to over 550 people.
Oh, they're affected.
Yeah, I don't think they were all sleeping in the school, but the locations that they were sleeping in, I scratch my head and I go, I don't think those that are approved for occupancy by fire code. But overall, that rental agreement will provide the district with, I think, somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000. We're still doing some final closeout work for them. We've also arranged for a commercial cleaner to come in and do a full carpet cleaning of that. The fire crews actually did a pretty good job protecting it, but the water damage from before they arrived have stained the carpets to the point that we need to really get in there and get that extracted and pulled out. Some good news from the state. We did receive funding for the Anderson roof in the capital budget through the school major maintenance grant program. Again, this is a completed project. It's been completed for a couple of years. And so we're going to get reimbursement for the state approved portion of that, which would then also trigger us requesting and working with the borough to ask for and hopefully receive that contribution from the borough for the 20% portion there. And even with that, there's a cost to the district that's still being paid out of our CIP fund, probably between $100,000 and $200,000. But the funds that we receive would go back into and kind of replenish that fund and help us move to a next project to start working on prior to an anticipation of state funding. And that will be the Tri-Valley Roof Project. We have opened and reviewed and scored the RFP for the engineering of that project. And we've identified Design Alaska as the recipient of the engineering award for that. I think we're still in our 10-day protest period, so there's potential for the other responder to protest and ask for a review of those decisions. And hopefully this timeline is going to allow us to move through engineering this year and move to initial construction phase next summer to renovate the Tri-Valley roof. And we can stop the seasonal rains that happen inside there. The other thing that's happening on a facility side on a smaller project, we do have the installation of a small solar array at Tri-Valley School, and that's scheduled to begin this Friday. So if you want to come and see some solar panels put in, it's supposed to be a 2-day project. And again, that was funded largely through donation from Solarize Denali, from the installer, donating 10% of the capacity that the community installed privately. And we also had a private citizen donate to also help support that. Okay. Some other updates. Just want to give you some updates on staffing. We've had some hiring during this summertime. It's been a pretty active staff time in terms of hiring. You might have seen articles in both in the papers about kind of Alaska-wide teacher shortages and also nationwide shortages with teaching. We've been lucky. We've been able to, I'd say at this point, fill almost all of our positions, though again, with some challenges. The board has approved the hiring of Maria Teresa Cordova for an open special education position at Tri-Valley, and also local woman Danny Talrico for an elementary position that we have at Tri-Valley. Next week, they will also be considering the recommendation to hire a young woman named Ella Long, also as a special education teacher. We do currently have an open position for this coming year in Cantwell, and we just made a conditional offer to somebody, and we're hoping that she's going to be able to say yes and begin joining us virtually for new teacher in service on Monday and be with us in person with our kids in early September. That's part of the kind of the conditions that we're talking about. It's somebody that we met earlier this summer that has another employment offer for the spouse in that partnership. And so they're kind of like poised to go and come up here. And we hope that this is going to help spur that and make that happen as quickly as possible and also help serve the needs of our kids. one of the things to be aware of with staffing is that 2 of the teachers we're bringing in are international teachers, and they're going to be coming in on the H-1B visa program. This is visa program for highly skilled professionals, where the J-1 visa program that a lot of us are familiar with here is a cultural exchange program. This one's really designed for a more skilled professional. And one in the middle of the summer, we had to actually switch from the J-1 to the H-1B process because H-1B visas for Alaskan teachers completely dried up at the beginning of July and sent every district in the state scrambling for teachers because the number of teachers that there are districts that are hiring international teachers to fill the need for education in the state is growing each and every year. The other staffing thing that I will mention at this point is if you have not had a chance to meet Mr. Gurley, our new principal at Tri-Valley, I'd encourage you to say hello, take some time to talk to him. Say he's easy to find because he lives right next to the school in Ray Evans' place. So you can see him kind of hanging around there, and he's very distinctive. He's incredibly tall, makes Talon look like a small man. But also incredibly friendly, incredibly knowledgeable, and we're really happy to have him joining our team. And with that, I entertain any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Fulton. It's always a pleasure to receive your reports. Any questions before he sits down? Just kidding. Hearing none. Next item on our agenda is to receive the finance reports from May and June of 2022. I entertain.
Make a motion to receive the finance reports.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Alexander has moved to receive the May and June finance reports as presented, and it has been seconded. Any questions or comments regarding said approval or receiving?
I think receivable.
All right. Show of hands for all those in favor. Thank you so much. Okay. The next item on our agenda tonight is the emergency manager's report, to which we will entertain our newest member from the Denali Borough staff, Mr. Furr Shreve. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm the newest member here, but we do have one newer staff member.
Oh,
than me,
well,
just so you know.
I will stand corrected officially on the YouTube.
But,
Just kidding.
Thank you. Yeah, so I am here kind of specifically to report on the Clear Fire incident, as well as introduce myself to the assembly. I have lived here since 2004 when my family moved here, and since got married and had kids and have a house and plan to be here for a long time. So I'm hoping that I'm here to stay in this position and can serve the borough for a while. And I'm going to jump into Clear Fire report and give a little bit of an overview on some of the statistics and also the borough's involvement and what we've been able to do with the Clear Fire. So the Clear Fire started on June 21st, which happened to be the day after I started my job here. So I've learned a lot quite quickly. And that fire ended up growing to over 72,000 acres. The total damage out there was 35 structures destroyed, as well as vehicles, equipment, and building supplies. That included 1 full-time residence, and 14 other cabins or livable spaces, and 20 outbuildings such as garages, sheds, things like that. A portion of the Kobe area was in a go evacuation status for 21 days. Evacuation statuses came as coordinated decisions between the incident command team, the Anderson Fire Department, and Mayor Walker and myself, coordinating those. Neighbor to Neighbor, Tri-Valley School, and Nenana School and others helped coordinate setting up evacuation centers at the two schools at Tri-Valley and Nenana. And we are grateful for everybody and their help and cooperation with that. We had one person stay at the Tri-Valley School for one night. We also had one other person come, I think, for 2 different days to work during the day to escape the smoke in Anderson. They were grateful for that being offered, and we had that offered all the way up until about a week and a half ago when there was no more area in a go evacuation status. The fire was staffed, as we talked about, the fire at its peak was staffed with over 550 personnel. And that was people rotating through on their shifts. So we dealt with quite a few people. I'm not sure of the total number, but I could imagine that we probably dealt with over 1,000 firefighters in the time that they were here and actively fighting the fire. The damage assessments, I was involved with that. I went out with a couple of members of the incident management team, as well as Red Cross representatives. And we drove to each of the properties in the Kobe area that's accessible by road. We took pictures, we did a damage assessment in order to know, what structures were lost and try to identify the property owners there. And I also went up with some of the incident management team to fly over the more rural area in the Clear Sky Homestead and up on the ridge and things, which was very beneficial to the residents who own those properties. They were grateful that they didn't have to make a long 4-wheel trip and hike out to some of these areas to confirm whether or not their house or cabin was still there. And definitely grateful for the firefighting team to allow us to have access to that helicopter for a day to go do that. It's resources that we don't have as a borough, but was necessary in helping with that damage assessment. We've been able to track down almost all of the property owners and inform them of the status of their property. And we had a couple of what are called READs, resource advisors, help to identify fire suppression damage. So as dozers went through and cleared lines, they, sometimes around personal property, clearing lines that the owners of that property would maybe rather not have had, or some damage done to roads, things like that. So the fire suppression activity was documented, and they were able to speak with each of the owners of the properties and get specific requests on how they would like that rehabilitated or put back in a reasonable manner that the firefighters were able to do.
And so that was completed? Sorry.
That is completed as to what they're going to do at this point.
Okay.
I believe that most of the residents out there are satisfied with the way it's done. But yeah, they're done with what they're going to do for the fire suppression repair.
Okay.
Actually, they're on the personal properties. They are still out there on the roads until Friday.
Okay.
So they're still out there doing a little bit of work on some of the roads until Friday. After the disaster declaration by Mayor Walker, the borough has been moving forward with the removal of fire debris of burned structures and vehicles and personal property that we are able to help with. There's some things like burned buses and some things that we just don't have the capacity to remove, or the time. If we did have the capacity, it would take quite a bit of time. So we've had Walt Warner, we hired Walt Warner and George Haskins, and They've had some different crew members out there working with them, getting things done. And the residents we've had emails and calls, and they've been very grateful for that offering of help from the borough. And just for anybody who either didn't read it or doesn't remember, in that declaration, Mayor Walker freed up $20,000 of our emergency fund that has been built over the past years in order to help those residents out, and they are very grateful for that. We've also had 2 dumpsters, 20-yard dumpsters placed out in the area that the locals are able to come and drop off fire debris into to get rid of, because the work that we're having done out there is not comprehensive. We're not out there with gloves and hands and picking things up. We're trying to get the larger unwieldy items out of there with those contractors. And some of the folks who had sheds or something burn have helped clear their own property. So it's been nice to have that out there. And the other thing that we've done is waive the tipping fee for fire debris. So if anybody's loading things into their pickup truck and bringing it to the landfill, we have a list of affected property owners that are able to drop off fire debris with a waived fee there. Tomorrow will be the last day of debris removal with the funds from the disaster declaration. And it looks like we're going to come up a little short of what we were hoping to, which is really trying to get all the structures off of the properties that are accessible by road. And I think we're going to come up a few properties short. So we're looking at other alternative ways of maybe helping finish that up, or helping, as people request. One of those is it's called Team Rubicon. The State Emergency Operations Center kind of led us to them, and they are a group of, I believe it's military, ex-military folks, or retired military folks who come together and take on missions and go and help wherever they can. So we're looking at possibly having them come help if they have that ability and capacity to. And I think that would be a great way for us to move forward with help in that area. The fire was originally staffed with a Type 3 incident command team, and was quickly upgraded to a Type 2 as the fire grew. And then we had a Type 2 incident command team for a full 21-day assignment. That's what they go out for. So they stayed here for the full 21 days, and then it was upgraded to a Type 1. The operation was impressive to see at the Anderson School. I went there quite a few times, meeting with them, helping, plan things and coordinate. And the mayor and I took a tour, and we learned a lot. It was impressive to see the different aspects and all the people who were here to fight this fire. And we're grateful to all of them for that. It was then passed back to the Type 3 incident command team, and as of yesterday to a Type 4. And he is going to be there until Friday, when the fire will no longer have any staff in the area. It'll be an unstaffed fire at that point. And they are suggesting that the southern border of the fire footprint there stay in a ready status until the snow covers the ground, just to allow for, keep it on people's mind in case there's a flare up. And he's also suggested to the state forestry, that they do a flyover every couple of days to just keep a spot check on it. And we are grateful for that suggestion, and I'm sure we'll be in coordination with forestry in the following month or so, as they are able to do that. And we can let people know when finally that ready status is gone, if anybody's wondering. However, basically our plan is to follow their suggestion, and at the first snow, we'll no longer need to have that status there. We have a long list of thank yous to hand out, and we are preparing, kind of, I think, a more public thank you and maybe some cards or something. But we're extremely grateful for all the coordination and cooperation of community members, local organizations, state, federal. I mean, there was a lot there. So that is my report for the clear fire. Is there any other questions that anybody had that I could answer, or don't ask me ones I can't?
I just, thanks to the guys on the ground. 3 important things that I wanted to make sure, or 2 important things I want to reference, is that a number of people in the Kobe area are not aware of the dumpsters, and they're not aware of the ability to take those things to the dump. The thing is, I've just left there yesterday, and I spent quite a bit of time out there doing different work. And actually, 2 days ago, I put out 5 different spot fires with me and one other neighbor, just doing our rounds in our neighborly area. So if we can get, if there's a better way, even if we were to put a sign up or something up in the Kobe Road saying, dumpsters for use this way, and however they can use the transfer station, may be a benefit, because there's not everybody out there uses a lot of internet and looks at the streaming, that kind of thing. And honestly, I didn't know about it either. I've been out there and working with a lot of different neighbors, and it's never come up.
Yeah, I'll take note of that, and I'll see what we can do to try and make that more widely known. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments for Mr. Shrew's report? Other than the extent of gratitude to you and all of our firefighters and logistical coordinators, everything like that. Seems like you were there just in time, but trial by fire doesn't quite catch it. But welcome. I'm glad you made it through the gauntlet. Hopefully it will be not as exciting, if you will.
I'm hoping to get into emergency preparation, not emergency response.
Yeah, less
So
reaction, more prepare.
Hopefully we can mitigate some things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your report either way, and welcome to the team. Okay, that takes us to the mayor's report. I understand you're at an AML or where are you at right now?
That's right. I am at AML, Alaska Municipal League Summer Conference, and grateful to be able to virtually join you this ever. This conference is in Sitka this year. It does rotate between communities, and I've been hearing from a bunch of folks, mayors and managers who come to this conference, still talking about the Denali year when we hosted not that long ago this same conference, and a lot of people called it the best one ever. But it is nice to be back in conference with the mayor's conference and managers, and yeah, we've got a full agenda tomorrow. We did some good tours of some public infrastructure today, and mayor's conference this afternoon. So you do have a written report in your packet, on the onboard packet, and it is posted on our website later for the public as well. And I knew, Forrest was going to give a fair amount of the clear fire report, and I appreciate that. But I also did kind of include a fair amount of that in my report just for the written record there. And so I'll go ahead and start with that. And yeah, thank Forrest for his tireless work through that first month on the job. He probably got about a year's worth of emergency experience there. It was, or more. It was incredible. The amount of coordination that took place, and we'll start with that with the 4 different teams. And I won't reiterate too much of what Forrest shared, but it was, as I've been saying, a big fire, big response, and big impacts. And there was a lot of work on those evacuation levels, the maps, the sheltering, a lot of coordination with the State Emergency Operations Center. Forrest did a great job working with the center to send out those text message evacuation alerts when an area was placed into go. And we do continue to work with the SEOC. And yeah, on the 21st, I did issue that local disaster declaration with those three objectives: to ask the state to open the individual assistance program to those who would be eligible, to ask assistance with recovery efforts focusing on debris removal and access restoration, and to open the Denali Borough's Disaster Contingency Fund for those recovery efforts to a maximum of $20,000. And I really appreciate Senator Bishop's letter of support to the governor. Governor Dunleavy did amend the previous summer fire 2022 disaster declaration to include the clear fire. Now, the state's declaration did not open the individual assistance program. They said it just didn't fit their criteria for a number of folks who had their year-round residence impacted or lost, but it did open the public assistance program. And Forrest has done a tremendous amount of work on that damage assessment, really honing that in and developing the best list possible, making contact with those folks. And yeah, the fire suppression plan, really working with, coordinating with the residents, the fire team, the incident management team, and DNR with the goal of leaving that area. And the borough maintained its stance on that goal, with the goal of leaving the area, both private property and the public access easements, in the best shape possible. And debris removal, that's where a lot of the work lies today. So I want to reiterate those thanks to so many personnel who work this fire, help protect our communities, and let us remember the loss of responder and pilot Alaskan Doug Ritchie, and honor his sacrifice in this effort. And then on the borough side, you know, Forrest and I did spend a lot of time up there and working on this, but it really was a complete team effort. Staff members, all staff members pitched in and helped at irregular times getting postings out, and really appreciate the full, complete team effort in communicating, especially. So let's move on from that down the list into DOT projects. That 231 safety enhancements project, it has been, boy, talk about big and impactful. That's met that criteria as well. And those delays have impacted residents, travelers, and businesses. But I'd say thankfully, DOT project managers early on did agree to offer that expedited service to businesses who go through multiple times a day. And I do want to thank Vanessa at the chamber for helping to coordinate the provision of that offering for those businesses. And let you know that the Healy Spur Road rehabilitation, that design is being finalized. It does include the addition of 2 6-foot shoulders, one on each side, of course. And construction is not yet finalized the date, but we've asked them to move it up to 2023, and it's definitely being considered. It may end up that next year it can be constructed. It's not final yet, but we're hopeful. And I was looking back to you know, since we did skip that July meeting, I was doing the list of everything back since our last meeting, and the state budget was finalized after our last meeting. So just to catch you up, if you didn't hear, you know, Governor Dunleavy did veto the funding, including for the Alaska Long Trail, for that pedestrian path connecting Carlo Creek to Krabby's Crossing that was in there. And additionally, major school maintenance funding was reduced significantly, but thankfully that Anderson roof project is funded. Moving on to solid waste updates, been a fair amount going on there in terms of regulations and standard work. The annual groundwater monitoring event that's going to be taking place this month. The DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, has informed us of new requirements going forward that we're going to be working towards a plan to meet, and that's additional testing for explosive landfill gases, for methane. So we're going to be working on that plan for probably next year. implementation. And our permit is up for renewal right now. So Scott's been doing the yeoman work on that and doing good work on that. And it's also been a team effort. And we've submitted our application to renew our operating permit for our Class 2 landfill for that 5-year period. You may remember last time it was a more robust permitting process. We did do a full redesign last time and engaged in an engineering firm and redesigned the landfill in a way that it'll last longer. So this time it's not as robust of a process. We're not doing a big redesign, and engineers don't need to stamp it. We've got that plan that we're going to be rolling with, and it's more of a hopefully kind of a more quick and dirty renewal process this time. Last time it did go on quite a long time. And then an update on GVA board action that took place, and we were frustrated like many and disappointed by the board's pivot on that pending decision on the reinvestment for Healy plant number 1, their decision to make those required investments. They did decide to do that as the assembly, advocated for in a resolution, but at the same time, they did ask the administration to develop a plan to shut down Healy 2. That did come as a surprise. And as that question was not really on the meeting agenda, we did have follow-up meetings with GVA leadership, met with the CEO Burns regarding the meeting, the decision, next steps. In addition, in a separate meeting, we met with the director of power supply, and there are a number of issues and concerns with that directed December 31, 2024 proposed shutdown date for Healy 2. So probably more on that in the future here. Had a good meeting. I called with AGDC folks, Alaska Gas Line Development Corp. Met with their project manager. Hadn't heard an update for a while, and also did want to ask them about a particular piece of infrastructure on their plans, that Healy compressor station. So they came up and provided a really good update, and boy, the project definitely has renewed interest with the high gas prices and the strong LNG market out there. And the structure of the project right now, I've been watching this project and participating in some levels. I was appointed by Governor Parnell onto the Municipal Advisory Committee for the gas line. And it does sound like a long time ago now that I say that, and it was. So the structure right now includes industry leaders operating each of the 3 major components of the project: the GTP, the gas treatment plant up on the North Slope, and the 800-mile pipeline. They've got they're working with the main pipeline company of North America on that, and then they're working with an LNG plant operator for the Nikiski piece. And the project is planning to move into FEED, final engineering and design, next year. They do have their FERC permit for this project. A lot of permitting has been completed for this project. The team did confirm that the location of the Healy compressor station could also allow for other uses in that particular area. And I also reminded him of the municipal piece, how they said they have a lot of they had 96% of their permits in place. And I said, well, we're part of that 4%. You don't have your easement through all the Denali Borough land that you selected to go through. So they know some of that work's ahead of them, as well as some other structural pieces of the project. And moving into Denali Regional Airport planning, the borough has met with DOT and an interested private party, Doyon Incorporated, regarding the potential to move forward with an identified transportation goal of a regional airport within the Denali Borough. That goal is identified in our comprehensive plan and our land use and economic development plan. And you do have a resolution to this effect, so we can speak to it at that time too. But planning work to identify a suitable site and finding the funding, likely federal, conduct the necessary studies, and there are extensive studies necessary to locate such a facility. You know, it's very much in the beginning stages. And maybe I've told you a little bit about that public lands ARPA. That's a piece of the ARPA bill that committed, well, 1.5 billion to public lands counties. And I've been working on it and on the committee level at NACO and the Public Lands Committee for a while, and pushing on it and asking about it. And the U.S. Treasury is mandated by that law to disperse those payments by September 30th, and they still don't have an allocation formula, which is frustrating and worrisome that that it's not going to go as the legislative intent read, was that it would go to public lands counties, and there's that direct tie to the PILT payments. And you know, we worked with NACO on some potential allocations based on those PILT payments, and you know, how this shakes out could be significant for the borough treasury. We're hopeful that it is tied to the PILT payments, and that we'll get what we believe is our fair share of that federal funding that was committed over the next couple years. It's going to be one of those 750 million for 1 year, and this coming fiscal year, and 750 for the next fiscal year. Did attend that Space Force change of command ceremony at Clear. Always good to get out there for that change of command to meet the incoming commander. And did want to tell you about some staffing. Boy, here at the managers meeting, municipal managers meeting, the primary topic was how difficult it is to find staff, and just get no applicants for so many jobs. And so we were really heartened when we had so many good folks apply for the administrative position that we have, administrative clerk position opening up, that also does accounts receivable, as Allison Johnson will be transitioning to that treasurer position, which, by the way, will be on your September agenda, as that treasurer position is one that the assembly confirms. And I'll let you know at this time, you know, that Allison is doing a great job. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me before next month's meeting, because that will be on the agenda. We hired Nicole Dalton, who brings a range of applicable experience, and she's stepping right in, doing a great job. She's up front, and next time you come in the borough office, say hi to our newest borough employee and welcome her to the team. And yeah, Forrest has been doing a bang up job, amazing job, leading that response. And Connie McMaster's last day as borough treasurer will be September 4th. Connie has served the borough so well, so dedicated. For a number of years, she served in that administrative accounts receivable role. She served in the finance clerk accounts payable role. She did all that spreadsheet maintenance and of all the CARES Act funding. She managed and documented and did a great job with the CARES monies. That was all Connie, and she's done a lot for the borough over the years, and we really want to wish her and Peter happy travels, as they have some good travels ahead of them. And I also wanted to let you know that the candidate packets for the November borough elections, for those assembly and school board seats that'll be elected in November, those packets are now available as of today.
Yeah.
See our clerk Amber Renshaw for those. And with that, I'll conclude my report and be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions, comments, concerns for the mayor and his report? Good work as always, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, that takes us on to the assembly's comments. I will start at the top of the list. Mr. Denali, go ahead.
Thank you. Yep, hopefully I don't cut out. Big thanks to Mr. Forestry for stepping in leading that emergency response with respect to the clear fire, the entire community, borough community that provided their support. Certainly watching things down in Cantwell, we have our own little tinder boxes ready to ignite with all the dead spruce trees. So a lot of activities occurring with prevention of a catastrophic event. Hopefully that never comes to pass. But it's great to see we have the competency and the leadership in Mr. Forestry to handle the emergency response, especially walking into that, the day after starting the job. So big thank you to you. And also best wishes to Connie McMaster and her family as they pursue, the next chapter of their life. It's been great to be the recipient of all the financial data and information. Makes it a lot easier to digest and go through and evaluate it. So thanks for all the work that she did. That's all for me.
Okay, great. Mr. Eklander.
Yeah, I'd want to echo the same thing. Welcome, Forrest. Hope that the rest of this year at least is a little less exciting than the first little bit that you came into. That's a rough way to begin. But also a big thank you to all the people that were involved in fighting that fire and all the efforts that were involved. It was a huge undertaking and a lot of personal sacrifice, and it was really an amazing effort. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Shreve.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody and for our public being here and driving up from Willow to come and talk to us. I do appreciate that. It's kind of the outskirts of the area, and for you to be willing to drive up and do it, I appreciate it.
Reproduced your packet, so I have something to read when I woke up in the middle of the night.
All right. So yeah, so I do appreciate that. We always like to have people here and getting the comments. And then I did enjoy having the work session. I was actually able to be a part of it. Another part of her work session as well for another organization. And just always putting it back on the forefront of health and wellness in our area. And so I did appreciate having that workshop there. A work session at the beginning, and being able to get a whole bunch of different people involved to make a good comprehensive potential plan for us to look at and have something to go on as we go throughout the years. And then for all the reports, it's always nice to have them and the details that they had, especially after missing a month. It's nice to get caught up and see where everybody's at. I look forward to, and I probably won't be able to make it, but my family will, to the Blueberry Festival. It's always a good time to go up there and get to meet with everybody and get out on the Otto Lake. And yeah, so that'll be fun. And then, yeah, for Forrest and the fire crew and all that, I got to see them a lot down in Nenana. They came there a lot as they were getting ready to get into the fire, and then seeing them after. It was definitely a stark difference of the new crew to the old crew. Just, you could tell they've been in the fire for a while. And yeah, and a lot of the incident commanders were staying down there in Nenana, so I saw them a lot. And just being able to thank them for the service that they are providing for the borough and for the response, the quick response. I know that the people that lost structures and things are very grateful for the borough and what they've been doing. I've been able to talk with them a few times down there, and just also driving by it every day, seeing how many people were coming in and out, and being able to go down to the Anderson School and seeing the magnitude that the people on the ground that they brought up to help us was good to see. And I am looking forward to the next part of this agenda for the resolutions and introductions coming up. So thank you.
This one.
Is it correct that Ms. Minor or Chatfield are not here?
Correct.
Okay, so that leaves me to my comment, which is other than to echo all these wonderful statements before me. Thank you for coming aboard. It's good to have you. Great to have you as always, Mr. Polta. Thank you for your efforts, sir. Yeah, I'm gonna save the rest of my comments till the end of the meeting, but it's good to be here. I now know why Jared didn't want to be the presiding officer with that work session. I felt a little peppered, not gonna lie, like, whoa. But other than that, it's always a great meeting, and it's always good to be challenged to think about our community with a fresh set of eyes like that. So all intended purposes, I would like to extend a great thanks to Miss Floberg and what was her name 2 pages ago? Kopita? Yeah. For bringing those issues to our awareness, and that was great. We'll close my comment. Mr. Zimmerman, would you care to give comment?
I'd like to thank Deputy Presiding Officer Zafone for taking over the meeting here. No, appreciate it. I'm at home with a sick kid tonight, and appreciate it. With people being there in person. Nice to facilitate from that seat there. Echo a lot of the thoughts here. Thanks for a good work session, and thanks for everybody involved in working on the Clear Fire earlier this summer. My heart goes out to everybody that lost property and valuables and time and all the stress involved up there. So I know make for a tough summer. So thanks for that, and I'll save the rest of my comments for the end.
Great, thank you, Jared. Okay, Mr. Stinger, are you still with us? He's not with us. I'm a liar. Mr. Johnson.
Welcome, Mr. Shreve, and just want to being in the middle of it all, obviously. That want to thank everybody who was on the ground and the efforts of Mr. Shreve and Mayor Walker. There were some other questionable activities higher up that we addressed at some later time, but the people on the ground, our representatives on the borough, thank you very much. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, that will close our assembly comment section of tonight's meeting. And there are no communications or appearances requests. So that will take us into our draft ordinances. First one on the list being ordinance 22-06, redistricting ballot per proposition option A. These are not numbered like that. Got it.
I move to introduce ordinance number 22-06.
Second.
Okay, so it has been moved to introduce by Mr. Denali and has been seconded. I would open up discussion leaning towards the mayor or the redistricting committee. Which one of you guys want this?
Should we introduce both of them and then talk about
Will we introduce both of them
I'll
and then
defer
talk?
to Mayor Walker, just, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I believe the redistricting committee did excellent work on this, and it's never easy redistricting, but I think we came up with a couple options that are the most palatable in terms of maintaining community integrity, which can be challenging based upon the shape and number of the census districts, which are outside of our control. So it wasn't an easy process, frankly, to come up with districts that maintain community integrity, yet also meet the number thresholds and stay within the variance goals. So I think the district, pardon me, the redistricting committee have forwarded, the two best options, one for a 7-seat assembly and school board, and one for a 9-seat assembly and school board, both maintaining the 5 districts with different shapes than previously.
What happens when if the 7-seat district were to get voted on and approved, to the extra 2 seats? Are they up, or how does that work?
You're just out. I don't know. I don't know. Mr. Mayor, how does that work?
How does it work?
How does that work? Hey,
You're just
good
out.
question. We addressed that and had a plan. It was kind of phased in. Maybe our wonderful clerk might be able to refresh my memory on that. Might phone a friend.
Okay. All right, friend. So the way it happens, this would go on this year's ballot. Everything would stay status quo. Obviously for this year, it would go into effect for next year's ballot. And so those seats would be adjusted accordingly for next year. Yeah, for next year's election. Yeah.
In conjoint with the new mayor.
Next year, the mayor position is up. Yes.
Big changes, 2023.
2023 is a big one.
Okay, so that was the answer to your question.
Does it happen to coincide? I mean, with this 7 one, does it happen to coincide with when those seats would be up, or is it the middle of somebody's term?
No, because I think it's
Every
H
district.
is up. I think they're both on the ballot this year, actually, right now. Anyway, so there would be an adjustment. Some people would end up serving 1 seat. However, like our election this year is going to be according to our current standard, and the next year's election will be to
The new one.
whatever is determined by the voters ultimately.
Okay. So if you're interested but not sure, next year potentially might have a 1-year stint
For
H, right?
H.
Isn't that what you just said?
That's up this year.
That's a joke. It doesn't matter.
No, it's Jeff Senior's seat is up this
It
year.
would be an easy one.
Okay.
Seat B has gotten huge.
This land was, yeah.
Look at this blue.
Okay, so not really sure. Because like the conversation for this one and the next one will be pretty much
Well, the motion on the floor is to introduce 2206.
2206. Okay, so it has been moved to introduce the appropriation with 9 seats serving 5 districts and seconded. The discussion we just had was for context, questions, comments, concerns, inputs, or otherwise in regards to 2206.
So with both of these, we're voting to have them on the ballot.
Yeah.
Well, we're moving to introduce them. So we'll introduce them tonight. We'll postpone them till the next meeting, probably.
Okay.
And then
Put them on the agenda.
ultimately, ideally, I guess, pick between one of these 2 options. Go ahead. Thank you.
If I can
Somebody please help me.
Yeah, if I can provide
Yeah.
Somebody help me.
yeah, a little bit more context. For these to go on the ballot, they will need to be passed at the September meeting.
So it is
Their
next
September
meeting.
meeting, September 14th, and the deadline for the ballot is September 15th. So getting it right in there. However, we wanted to give the redistricting committee time to discuss, which they did in a timely manner. And so here we are, when we do have the time to do this. It's rather important to provide an option on the ballot, because the idea of not making a change is not an option, right? And so if you just threw one out there and it failed, then you then we would be in a really awkward conundrum.
Like a little-
So
yeah.
to provide two options for the voters to determine which option they prefer is the most straightforward and least confusing
Right.
option for you to consider. So that's why there's two on here. They are listed differently so that you can see them as different maps.
Mhm.
There's not a confusion having two different maps within one ordinance. So two ordinances right now is for clarity. The intent is to put
Both of
two
them.
options on the ballot. However, this is before you and you can adjust it however you see fit. So
Okay,
one or both.
perfect. One or both.
I mean, it seems to me.
For
that the-
practice,
the
seems like
is
both.
Good.
Yeah.
Right? Does anybody have think that isn't a good idea?
Let's introduce the other one real quick, though. We can talk about it.
But we could also just like, yeah, okay, sure, go ahead. Introduce it. I'm not able to do that. So go ahead.
I would like to introduce, what was the number?
07.
07.
The ordinance number 2207.
Second.
All right.
Okay,
Now they're
so
both interested.
Yes, now we
Now we can
um,
talk about
to
them.
align the conversation to be had, both of these ordinances are now introduced onto our table, being, in summary, to allow an option of choice on the ballot. One being a more status quo 9-member model, the other one reducing the number of representatives down to 7.
And the 9 is the no change option? Or has it been slightly adjusted?
I think it's got adjusted. The reason why we had the redistricting committee every 10 years when they do the census,
Right,
everything's going to get redistrict.
right.
So it will always change because of the way they find people, and their
Right.
census blocks were really crazy. And so, yes, both of them are changed, but one is just more of a drastic change.
Right.
Yeah.
One of them has a change in the number of people on the table.
Yeah.
And the other thing also with this is.
Yeah, the goal was we just,
Go ahead, Dominic.
well, I was just gonna say, what we were looking at and coming up with these options is what was the apportionment percentage, right? So where we were out of spec per state statute, this at least 2206, that map with 9 seats does the best job at maintaining the status quo without disrupting, as Mayor Walker said, community integrity. So.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
That makes sense.
the other thing with this too is the assembly is right now in code is tied to the school district. So it would not only change the number of seats on the assembly, but also the number of seats on the school district, unless we went in and changed our code, but then that gets all crazy because of apportionment and things. So that was something else we talked about in the redistricting committee. Yeah. So that's something else to.
And when we have that will be clear that this is also tied to the school district thing in the ballot.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
I'm for it.
Yeah, and so these were the two options that we came up with out of the 4, I think it was, that we started with, like Mr. Canali was saying, that would fit us the best at this time. Because in 10 years, it's going to change again.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is for the assembly and the school board, separate of what else is in our packet for the planning.
That's
commission.
correct.
Yeah, the planning commission one, that one is flexible
Yeah.
because it's a committee.
It is a committee.
Committee.
Planning committee.
Yeah, commission. So it is not in code for that one. That's something that is appointed by the mayor, not elected in.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Comments, questions, concerns, statements. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I guess we have talked about the amount of service that we do require of our people. With just 1,600 people, we have 3 9-member boards requiring 27 people to stand up to borough service, and it's certainly disproportionate to how other municipalities do it. You know, talking with some other municipalities today just about that. We did, when we modeled 9 at the beginning of our borough, you know, that we modeled that after Fairbanks. They have 9. They also have, you know, 90,000 people. Oh,
that's a bit more than us.
Yeah, the number of people that one representative represents is I can't imagine it's matched anywhere else. Less than 200 for each representative. And you know, there have been challenges to fill some of those seats on the school board. The school board at different times has expressed interest in reducing the number of seats, just so you know. That conversation has happened over the years. And you know, when we did this 10 years ago, because we need to redistrict every year to stay apportioned. And you know, at that time, we also did consider 2 different models, one 9-member kind of status quo, and the other at that time that went to the ballot was a 7-member at large. Actually, that's what was recommended by the state, that we go to a 7-member at large. That's the most common in a small population borough throughout the state. But you know, we do value our districts, and so the committee put forward a 9-member district plan that's the most status quo, and a 7-member district plan. So that's a little more background on it.
Great.
And we'll talk about the planning commission next in the next one.
Anybody else? Comments, questions?
Do you have a feeling on the 9 versus 7 school board?
You know, I
number?
don't think the school board has a standing resolution on that. They've discussed it at times in the past, often brought it up at work sessions, but I don't think at any point they've adopted a resolution.
Right.
So because of that, I'll
Not
defer anything to comment on.
Wise.
We did have a school board member on the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the school board is currently filled, right?
I
Yes.
believe it is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it has been moved to introduce. Should we just go back to one and then the other? Okay, so at this time, I would like a roll call vote for the introduction of ordinance 22-06, which is the option A, the 9 seats serving 5 districts option presented to us from the Redistricting Committee. And if there's no more conversation about that in particular, I would ask for a roll call vote.
All right, Talon Street,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
David Alexander,
yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Or as introduced, yes.
It is unanimously introduced as it is. Okay, with that, we'll look for a motion to postpone.
Move to postpone ordinance 22-06 until next month.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Shreve to postpone ordinance 22-06 and has been seconded. All of those in favor of the postponement, raise your hand. Any opposed, speak now. Hearing none, we will consider 2206 postponed until next month's meeting. Next up, we have 2207, which is the 5 districts being served by 7 seats. The new option for our redistricting of the Denali Borough. It has been moved, introduced, and been seconded. So at this time, without any further
Yes.
John Shreve,
Yes.
Krista Sapone. Dominic, are you with us?
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
All right. So moving on, we have a proposed ordinance 22-08. Oh, I'm sorry. Shit.
I move to postpone ordinance 22-07 till next month's meeting.
I second it.
Has been moved to postpone the ordinance 22-07 until next month's meeting. All of those in favor of postponement, raise your hands. Any opposed that I cannot see, speak now. Hearing none, we will call ordinance 2207 postponed. Thank you, Mr. Shreve. All right, ordinance, next on the draft ordinances, ordinance 22-08, Planning Commission composition ballot proposition. An ordinance to amend the process to define the Planning Commission's proposition as introduced by the mayor, Mr. Clay Walker.
Move to introduce ordinance 22-08.
Second.
Thank you, Dennis. It has been moved to introduce the ordinance 22-08 and been seconded. I would open this up for conversation since Ms. Brown might be here, but Mr. Mayor, this has got your name on it, so we'll give it to you.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Sapone. This too, if approved at the next meeting by the assembly, would, if adopted at the next meeting by the assembly, would go to the November 8 election to change charter and code regarding the composition of the Planning Commission. In charter, it does say it consists of 9 members. And this ordinance in question to the voters would change to as defined by assembly ordinance. The assembly can define the composition of commissions, committees, and this is not an elected body. It's not governed by those apportionment rules. And it is an appointed body. And yeah, the 9 members on the Planning Commission have been probably the hardest to fill over time, and is probably the most out of whack too with other municipalities. For example, Matsu Borough, with everything they've got going on, has 5 planning commissioners. And it's not uncommon to have a planning commission that's of a different size than the elected body. So I would recommend your consideration of this ordinance, which would put the question to the vote of the people to have the assembly by ordinance define the composition of the Planning Commission.
So the assembly would be able to determine what if it were whatever number.
Sure.
At any time.
By ordinance.
Would this be similar to an annual ordinance, or would it be more on just a needs-based schedule? I guess
I wouldn't project that it would be necessary annually, no. Very infrequently, in fact.
right. Yeah, with the turnover there, I would assume. One of the things that I was wondering when I was reading this in the packet was, would it be in our best interest to have like a no less than X numbers versus no more than X numbers in this? Because this is what's going to be on the ballot going into charter, for the future, right? So if it was, say we have 6 or 7 now dedicated members now, and we wanted to keep them involved because they're involved, but at some point we might have no more than 5. and maybe in the future have means to need up to 9 again for some obscure reason that I can't imagine.
Should there be a minimum?
Like, should we have like a 5 to 9 window on here so that we're not changing charter again? If we do blow the bubble and have need for 9 assembly or 9 planning commissioners again. Was just kind of my thought process there, and I just wanted to entertain that with the rest of you, because.
This would allow any number.
Yeah.
Correct.
But
But,
would we want to allow one?
but would we want the planning commissioner? Yeah, would you want to allow one?
Right. It seems
Or-
like you're electing a king. King of planning.
But that would be by ordinance. The assembly would be considering
Right.
an ordinance to have a planning commission of 1, and, you know,
Right.
that would.
I
be
understand,
duly
I
considered.
understand that. I just think, because when we're changing charter, I like to try to consider, suiting our means without changing the charter again in the near future.
Well, that's
So
what
if
this
we've had
does.
no more than 8. I'm just wondering, as far as language goes on something like this.
I'd say the maximum wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but I would have a problem if it were less than like 3.
Yeah.
But the assembly will determine that when an ordinance is introduced to address and define the composition of the planning commission. I don't think that needs to be as part of a ballot proposition, because that could get squirrely and just locks us back in to a number that maybe we can't adhere to.
Okay, I understand that part of it, but I guess in my mind, sometimes when we do things, we fall on intent. And this might be a way to clearly intend to have no less than 3 planning commissioners at any given time. I guess it's kind of where I feel like what I'm trying to say is maybe a minimum is better. Like, maximum, I would be pressed to imagine the planning commission outnumbering the assembly,
Right.
but like, I feel like, yeah, you don't want to have, you can't have a planning commissioner of 1, because then, like Mr. Alexander said, you have an oligarchical opinion. You
And
can't
can
have
almost-
2, because then you don't have a voting.
Right.
So then 3 would be kind of a minimum. I'm just semantics aside, 20 years from now, when we're not around,
Right.
we would hate to see somebody have a planning commission of 1, because
You
we,
could almost imagine some scenario where, the assembly would, for some reason, want to steer something into just like one way and do it through the planning commission of having only one planning commissioner that was on their side.
I don't know, I'm just playing a little
Yeah.
bit of a devil's advocate.
No, I
like
agree with
like
you.
to. But,
Would it make
you know.
sense to possibly kill 2 birds with 1 stone? Because the other thing with the planning commission is we have so many different areas and drivers, to say something along the lines of, it has to at least constitute 1/3 the amount of 1/3 of the districts has to be represented. So you can't have 3 planning commissioners from my district, because we have something totally different than what the parks has got in mind. But we don't want the parks driving the rest of the other districts. So saying has to be at least 3 different districts represented at a minimum. And that way you always have, a minimum of 3 or 4. We can always expand upwards, but you always have to have at least 3 districts represented. Because at least they'll know what their neighbors are wanting on the policy committee.
Yeah, I think that's kind of on the similar vein there, Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Now we're making it complicated.
Well, yeah, of course we are, but that's our job. Like, okay, that's why we're on the internet right now doing it live stream.
Right.
I don't know. We've changed the charter before, and it's gone back onto the intent from the minutes of 15 years ago or so, and it just seems like if we have the opportunity between now and the next meeting to really put that on here somehow, I don't know. Go ahead.
It has to be done by next meeting to get on the ballot.
I understand that.
So, we'd have to do it tonight to get it, that way we can have the second.
Okay, well then that.
I kind of like the idea of having the minimum, just to, since it's going to be in the charter. I don't think the maximum is a problem with representation, but the minimum would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so, but what do you think, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I can't imagine a committee that functioning, it's actually a commission, you know, of such a small number. So, and I can't imagine that the assembly would consider that wise. So, you know, it does empower the assembly to set the commission composition, and it can include number of districts. It can include number of you know, commissioners. And as we said, it's also, it's how the assembly sets up, you know, other committees and commissions. You guys determine the composition. So why not, you know, take it out of charter that it has to be 9 and allow the assembly to set the composition just like every other committee or commission is the intent.
Mhm. Okay, so the section on our ordinance tonight for the charter is what we'll be putting onto the ballot? Or will both of the charter and the code sections here be on the ballot?
It would be, the ballot question would be more of a statement, you know, shall it be changed to allow, it wouldn't be the code language in the red and the green like it is
right,
before
right.
you right now. It would be more of a statement of intent for a yes or no vote.
For both the charter and the code on here? Okay.
Just to follow up, I think I understand the wisdom why they had 9 before to make sure these districts was represented. And by changing it, I would feel uncomfortable not saying that at least, you know, 1/3 of the districts have to be represented, so that there's not some other driver, or, you know, as board members changes, you know, as someone else mentioned, assembly oligarchy, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here playing with the words on here, and I kind of think there shall be a planning commission consisting of no less than 3 different district representatives appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the assembly. Might be kind of a way to have a minimum. And then also, like you brought up, Mr. Johnson, that having 3 different jurisdictions or communities represented in that commission. And it could go up to 9 or up to whatever anybody says they want, as appointed by the assembly per ordinance. But I would entertain a motion to that effect. I guess since I can't make them tonight because I'm the presiding officer.
Make a motion for that change. You read your
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Johnson, I'm going to read it again just so that everybody's on the same page, has moved to amend the Denali Borough Charter Section 7.01 to read, there shall be a planning commission consisting of no less than 3 different district representatives appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the assembly, so on and so forth, as written. Has been moved.
Can you say that one more time?
I wrote it down. It's right here. It's written down.
Good.
Okay.
I'll just-
I know. I'm sorry. It's my fault this got brought up anyway, so I own it. But that has been moved by Mr. Johnson. So that would be entertained by a second,
Second it.
and then I forget. A vote on the amendment. Okay, so at this time, I would like to have a show of hands for the amendment, or is it roll call? Show of hands.
Sorry, might you entertain discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, sure, please.
Thank you. I would just recommend, it's going to be another 8 years, just 8 years before the next census, right? And we're talking about charter. And we don't want to have to change it every time. So I just recommend that, like a little qualifier in there, so long as we elect by districts, that yes, that, and what the number of districts is. What if we go to 3 districts? What if we, well, 3 districts, you want 3.
Right.
What if we go to at large? That's been contemplated and voted upon, you know, at the last election on this. If we go to at large, and then we have in our charter about districts for the planning commission of you know, which is
Right.
which is not bound by districts.
I mean, this is
it would be weird.
I mean, we could leave out the district part. I mean, I understand the idea of it, and it seems like a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, at least a qualifier in there, so long as we have districts.
Can you
Right.
say communities and
But then what's the number?
people? I mean,
It's
Yeah.
not, the way that the voting blocks or the census blocks are, doesn't always hit in the same community
right.
and starts stretching.
Jared has his hand up.
Mr. Zimmerman, I've been informed. Hi, thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I guess my reaction is if we were debating, like, if this passes and we're debating as an assembly the makeup of the planning commission, I would certainly support like those ideas, like trying to get representation from the different districts, and I would advocate for that. But I don't see the need to put that in charter, that level. I think that between the mayor making the appointments and the assembly confirming them, like with the type of representation, at least that we're planning on coming up in this next census, I think that there is that kind of district-based representation
Okay.
kind of built in. So I think that both within the appointments and then also the confirmation process of the assembly could just not confirm. You know, if the appointments are all from one community, the assembly would just not confirm it. And it's like, no, we want to see some candidates from other communities, you know, before we fill this seat. So I think that as well represented as the assembly is going to be, you know, I think that there would be that there would be those voices in that conversation. So I hope.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't see the need to change it, I guess.
Would you-
in the charter? But if we're having the discussion about what we want that planning commission to look like, I do support that idea, because it is going to be, you know, up to us if this passes, what that planning commission looks like.
Do you have a thought on whether to have the number in there?
As far as like no less.
I guess I like 5. I mean, I would be fine just making it 5, you know, in perpetuity and not debating it.
Consisting of 5 members appointed by.
Yeah, and then 5 people appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the assembly. Or if we want to debate, you know, if we want to debate that number and we think that maybe 7 is better than 5, and maybe that, you know, maybe if that changes, if there's different things going on, the future assembly would have the ability to do that if we're not getting adequate representation with the 5. So I can see it both ways. If we were to make that one change, I would advocate for the number 5.
So no less than 5?
Or just 5.
Or just
You
5.
put it in charter that there's a 5
Consisting of
5
5.
commissioner planning commission.
Okay.
Or 7, but
Right now we have 6 seating planning commissioners.
We have, there's 9 seats, but only 7 are filled.
We have 7 filled planning commissioner seats. Okay. So, if I recall correctly, right now, there's been an amendment that has been discussed apart, basically.
If we did a minimum as opposed to just number, it allows more flexibility above that number. As opposed to just saying a certain number. I don't
I lean towards what Jared was saying.
just have a number.
Putting it on 5, 6 or 7. I mean,
Something like that, and then just or just not doing it all and letting the assemblies do it when it comes time. Because yeah.
so you either agree with Jared or agree with the way it was written?
Yeah.
I'm just
but
asking.
Jared was saying the same thing, except for if we're gonna do it, let's do 5 and just keep it that way.
Okay.
With 5, put a number in.
Okay.
I would, yeah, I kind of go back and forth on that. I think we don't have a large planning staff. So the commission itself does a lot of, you know, they do a lot of work on all this stuff. So, you know, if we're talking about management plans and, you know, deciding what to do with these land parcels and stuff like that, that does take some workshopping. And, you know, if we had if we're debating that, you know, maybe we do want to say 7 instead of 5, or kind of depending on that workload, or if we can't get seven people, maybe the assembly just wants to change the ordinance to make it 5.
7 seems to be hard since we only have 6 now.
Well, then where does quorum fall into that is my next question. Yes, Madam Clerk.
So I just wanted to make a couple of statements, and maybe you can show on this one. Dominic just texted me and let me know that he has dropped off and doesn't think he'll be able to reconnect, which does mean you're down to 5 members. So it would need to be in a unanimous vote. Additionally, you can make an amendment next month and still pass in the same
Meeting.
In the same meeting. You're changing it, but not significantly. And this is something that's to go to the ballot, to the vote of the people. So it's not like you're making an everlasting
Like an actual decision.
Decision. You're just putting this idea to the voters to see if they approve it or not. So yeah, I think those are the things I wanted to point out. And you are down to 5. So hopefully everybody stays connected. Otherwise we'll lose our quorum.
And everything will not matter.
And it takes 5 votes to pass anything. Just
So
no
why
matter how
don't
many people are
we
in
just
attendance,
put
it
this
still
off
takes
till
them 5. So.
next time?
Okay, well, I don't disagree with you. Right now, we would need, I think, Mr. Johnson to retract his amendment, right?
Or we can just vote it down.
Or we can just vote down the amendment? I'm asking because I don't know.
You can take it back, or you can go ahead and vote on it. That doesn't mean you can't vote on it again next time if you have it more kind of fleshed out and another amendment. So either way.
Either way is
I'll retract my amendment and renew it next meeting.
Appreciate your flexibility, Mr. Johnson. We are learning here together. Okay, so that being said, discussion afoot about creating a 5 or 7 member, leaving it as is by appointment. I think at this point we would entertain a motion to postpone this conversation till the next month's meeting when we can all think about it a little bit more clearly.
Well, it needs to be introduced before you.
Needs to be introduced still? Oh my
Motion
gosh.
is to
Who is in
introduce.
charge of this meeting?
So we just had to vote on introducing it.
Yes, we do have to have a roll call vote on to introduction.
So that's where we're at.
So it's not passage. You're just introducing it to talk
Correct.
about it next month.
Correct. Are we ready for that, everybody? Okay, great. I'm gonna ask the clerk to call roll call vote on to introduction. This is why they only let me do this like twice a year. I'm just letting everybody know.
All right, David Alexander.
Yes, I think.
Uh,
Not sure what I'm voting on.
Dominic is not on. Mark Johnson.
Yes.
Talon Shreve.
Yes,
Jared Zimmerman. Hope he's there. Hope he's there. Hope
he's there.
Yes.
Krista Sapone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have 5 votes to introduce
Good
ordinance
grief.
22.
I apologize if I was the reason that got complicated,
That's funny.
but I don't take it back.
I move to postpone ordinance
Oh, wait.
22-08 until next meeting.
My second.
Okay, the ordinance has been moved to postpone 22-08. Has been seconded. All of those in favor? Any opposed, speak now. Hearing none, ordinance 22-08 has been postponed. You all now know where your homework is in between now and the next month's meeting.
Think about a number.
Just kidding. Okay, draft ordinance next up, 22-09, the emergency. Oh, what's M? Management Performance Grant application, 22-09. Thank you for.
Move to introduce ordinance 22-09.
I second it.
Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Shreve to introduce ordinance 22-09 and has been seconded. Opening discussion, I will lean to Mr. Shreve or Mr. Mayor. Are you ready for this? No, Mr. Mayor, that's you, buddy.
Thank you, Mrs. Paul. This is an annual grant submission that the borough has taken good advantage of for a number of years. This program, we call it the EMPG, right? Emergency Management Performance Grant. And changes this year, we are asking for more money. We did increase the request. Last year, it was 24,000. This year, we haven't been awarded this, but we're requesting that number. We don't know for certain that that's going to be the number. But if, we're going to introduce it at this meeting, and hopefully we'll know that number. And so, it does go to salary and benefits of our emergency planner. And of course, it does have some requirements attached to it to complete the Alaska assessment, to attend the spring and fall preparedness conferences, and to participate within the National Incident Management System. So we've met those requirements for many years. We intend to keep that up. And also, so the full salary is actually budgeted for this position. If we get this grant, then it helps relieve that burden on the borough for this important position.
Great, yeah, thank you. Any other questions or discussion about 22-09?
Seems like a good thing.
Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote on introduction.
All right, David Alexander,
Yes.
Talon Shreve.
Yes.
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman,
Yes.
Krista Sapone.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
Move to postpone ordinance 22-09 till next meeting.
Second.
Okay, has been moved to postpone 22-09 till next month's meeting. I would take a show of hands for all those in favor of that postponement. If you have anything against that, speak so now. Hearing none, we will call 22-09 postponed until next month's meeting.
Move to introduce ordinance 22-10.
I haven't even said that that's what we're doing yet.
Second.
Okay,
Getting close.
We're getting there.
he's like, my dinner is hungry. All right, it has been moved to introduce 22-10, the USDA Rural Business Development Grant Acceptance and Allocation by Mr. Shreve and has been seconded. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Sapone. I'll remind the assembly that you did support by resolution the application for this funding request, and we're pleased to have been awarded. And now the assembly gets to, by ordinance, accept and appropriate the match for this for this grant under USDA's Rural Business Development Grant. And so the funds to receive are 91,820, and our match requirement is 22,955. And as a reminder, that's 20% of the total project. As a reminder, this project will go to installation of street signs to support commerce within the Denali Borough and the
Great.
flow of goods and services.
Thank you.
We don't want to interrupt the flow. The
Gotta
flow
ride-
is
you
good.
Gotta ride the flow.
Got to go with the flow.
Okay, any other discussion questions on ordinance 22-10?
I think this is a good first step to get the street signs and names and numbers and all that out there. So I'm glad we were able to find this grant to be able to utilize it for a project we've been working on for a while.
Yeah, I would just like to echo that everybody's been all like, oh, so you guys made us have street names and now where's my sign?
Right.
It's kind of nice to have this
Be nice to have the sign
coming at you.
and to get,
For some reason, good things take time, just doesn't seem to resonate with people quite like it used to.
and it's nice to get $100,000 worth of signs for only $22,000.
Yeah.
That would be math. And that's another hard thing to convince people of. However, with that, I will call for a roll call vote of roll call vote of introduction of 22-10, Madam Clerk.
Yeah. Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Alan Shreve,
Yes.
David Alexander,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman,
Yes.
Krista Zappone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous.
Yay.
Okay. There are no pending ordinances on tonight's agenda.
But
Not
we
ta-
need to postpone that.
Oh, shit.
I move to postpone ordinance 22-10
Oh,
until next meeting.
Second.
okay. Show of hands in favor of the postponing. Anybody opposed, speak now. Okay. 22-10 has been postponed until the next meeting. There still are no pending ordinances on tonight's agenda, so that takes us to resolutions. One resolution on tonight's table, 22-23, a resolution supporting borough engagement and participation in the planning process for a regional airport.
I move to approve resolution number 22-23.
A second.
Thanks for waiting for my cough. I seen you over there. Appreciate it. Has been moved and seconded. Mr. Mayor, go ahead and take us away.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a long identified need, and there is boy, there are municipalities across the state who are having some success finding funding for ports. There's interest in ports, and as you know, there's been some big investments within the state's ports, especially as it relates to the visitor industry, and some of that has been in private partnerships too. The Icy Strait development that Huna Totem played a significant role in, and then Doyon and Huna teamed up to assist and lead port improvement in the city of Whittier, and we need a port. Just a way to get here is by air, and right now you can't. There's no jet service, and so we're pleased to be working with DOT and Doyon towards this goal. It's very much in the early stages, but the resolution simply says that the Assembly seeks to improve air access for residents, visitors, and supports engaging with the state and Doyon to further a regional airport plan for the Denali area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any comments, questions, concerns? I did enjoy looking at the project portfolio, I will call it, I guess. That was a delightful surprise to see in my package. Huh?
Yeah, it's quite the Quite the first
The
one.
partnership with Doyon is obviously good. Are we partnered with the local tribe as well? Or are they doing that through the Doyon Corporation?
We don't have a local tribe within the Denali Borough in the northern part of the borough. The nearest tribal is in Nenana, actually.
Right.
So, well, I'll tell you, so far, and it's in its early stages, we're working directly with the regional corporation.
We're having some technical difficulties. Again, where's that?
Time out. The speaker broke here on this end. Somebody say something.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, there you
great.
are. Now we can hear you again.
It looks like everybody's scrambling around, but you sound great.
Like, oh, time out. Hold the ball.
Are we good?
You think so?
I think we're good.
We're almost done, guys. We can make it. Okay. So the last thing that I heard was Mark Johnson's question about local tribe. So if you could answer that for us again.
Yeah, at this early stage, we've simply been working directly with the regional corporation. And
Okay.
we don't have a tribe within a Doyon tribe in the Denali Borough.
Okay.
I mean, Ahtna is planning to build their hotel.
Yeah, I can't know.
I mean, wouldn't they be sort of
Right.
interested in being a part of this though?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
And
It is a different regional corporation.
Yeah.
It's a different entity. Yeah.
I was excited to see the packet in the thing. It's something I've been talking about for many years, and I hope if they do put a group together to get public comments and things like that, I would be glad to be on that. And just seeing what they're putting together, it's pretty amazing. And the two sites that they have picked, I do have a preferred one, but they are both nice sites. But I would love to get involved in any way I can with this one, because it's super exciting to see that the borough is potentially, but looking at the back page there, or the second to last page,
It's long
the
away.
time frame,
Yeah, it's far away.
Yeah, getting an airport here and making it more economical to get up here, easier, especially during winter times. Yes.
I thought it was interesting that in here they were talking about, because I've been reading it, that they were planning for 737s.
Yeah, 737-900s would be the biggest one they could land.
It's a pretty big plane.
Yeah, 187 people.
You haven't been doing any homework,
Oh, no, I
have
haven't
you?
done any homework on this one, no.
So I'm just not exactly familiar with, not that this matters to this, because obviously we're just voting on the
Supporting it or not.
supporting the commission. I think that we're all for having, exploring this for sure. But where is Site B, just for my own edification?
It's the
What is
the
it?
east side of the highway.
Yeah,
3 miles south of the ferry
Yeah, about
turnoff.
mile 258.
258,
Yeah.
okay.
Right
That's
around
that's
that
the
area.
part that,
Buffalo Flats, north end of the Buffalo Flats. Almost.
A little bit further north, but yeah, right in that area.
because the A is far.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really far
And the
from
nice one
Neely.
about Site B, you also have the rail that could be potentially
Yeah,
going up
and you
there.
just get right on. It would be a nice, right?
Yeah,
But having 747s like coming over here would be quite the thing.
yeah.
I mean, what's the difference between that and then Blackhawks that are 100 feet above my
Oh,
house
that's
every
true.
day?
That's
Yeah,
true.
like,
At least it would be
Or the
timed that we
Chileans.
know when they're coming. Yeah. Yeah.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, it's very exciting, and any way I can be participating in this would be great.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of the other ideas in this design floor
Yeah.
as well. Cool. So any other points of discussion about the resolution to support engagement and participation in the planning process with Doyon and
The other
DOT.
thing, the other thing that I did have was, I'm glad that they reached out to us, and I know we were gonna be a part of it anyway, but the more that we can be a part of it and really get involved, the more we can focus it on what the needs are for the Denali Borough and have somebody in there to make sure that, yes, they're gonna be flying over Healy, but what's the pattern and how can we the least impact the residents of the borough, but still provide a even
right.
better offering and
Right.
things like that.
Having it closer to the Healy would seems to me to be the best idea.
Yeah.
I mean, when this popped out of my packet, I can tell you all that I selfishly was like, I would love to leave my car at my house.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, just get a ride to the airport. Somebody let me leave my car at my house.
Yeah.
So yeah, very exciting. Okay.
It would be quite a thing. First 3 bears and then this.
First 3 bears, man, growing up in the world. Okay, I believe it was moved to approve, so that would be a roll call to vote on the approval, for which I will refer to Madam Clerk.
Okay, Tom Shreve?
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman?
Yes.
David Alexander?
Yes.
Mark Johnson?
Yes.
Krista Zapone?
I'm just kidding. Yes,
Sorry, I'm Joe Manchin.
Unanimously, approved.
always will be. Awesome. Okay, that takes us to other business. We have one liquor license application, license number 6063, Camp Denali license renewal application. Looking for a motion of yes, ma'am.
If I can just, a clarification before you make any motion. This is actually a new application.
Oh,
In my habit, most of ours are renewals. I typed it renewal, even though I was looking at the application that said it was new. So my apologies on that. It was a typo. This is a new application, not a renewal.
okay.
And this is for
Camp Denali.
Camp Denali, their facility here or in Kantishna?
Kantishna,
Okay.
I imagine. But yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
right.
it was in Kentish.
Okay. Because, yeah. Didn't see it in my packet.
It doesn't.
Then she
change
quit
anything
printing
about your
them because
vote.
they're
It was
20
just
20 pages
Right.
long.
Title type of graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I moved it on protest license 6063.
A second.
Okay, it has been moved to make a motion of non-protest and been seconded. Any discussions, concerns, or objections, I guess? Okay, hearing none, I would see a show of hands for non-protest. Mr. Zimmerman, if you'd like to protest, please speak now. Just kidding. All right, great, thank you. That takes us to public comments at the end of the meeting. Our public has ran away from us here in the office, so I would assume.
Can I be public?
Yeah, you can. Mr. Forshreve would like to be a public comment at this time.
Yeah.
Mr. Shreve.
The discussion on the potential charter change for the planning commission. I really like the idea that Mark Johnson had with making sure that multiple districts are represented. So just as a borough member, I would like to make sure, and in charter, I feel is the strongest place to make sure that multiple districts are represented. I understand the issues if we change the way that our assembly is set up. That could be a funny thing, but I believe that you could work the wording in if that is what the assembly sees fit to do. But I liked the initial idea there from Assemblymember Johnson. And the one thing that I did have while listening to it is when you had the wording of 3 different representatives appointed, or 3 different district representatives appointed, I think changing the wording to three, I wrote it down, representatives from three separate districts. So that it's not three different representatives that could be taken the wrong way. So three representatives from different or separate districts. I think that clarifies that point just slightly more. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Since I'm presiding officer, I'm just gonna spit back at you because I can. As a chewing bone for the group here, what about just three representatives from like,
Not from the same district.
no, just like the three major communities of the Denali Borough?
Or we could even have it some sort of more like a nebulous intention, like representing the borough as a whole, or, something along those
Sure.
lines.
I don't know. We're gonna have to chew on it.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that,
But
but.
thank you for paying attention during our conversation. Frank. Appreciate it. Okay. Madam Clerk, with the internet comments has no others, so that will close public comments. Takes us to assembly comments. I will start at the bottom of the list now with Mr. Johnson.
I just thank everybody for meeting tonight, and those who attended from the public.
Great, thank you. Mr. Zimmerman.
Yeah, thanks everybody for a great meeting, and great job, Ms. Zapone, facilitating, and thank you.
Yeah, that leads me to my comment. Thank you guys for your patience, humor, and understanding. As I mentioned, I do this a handful of times a year, maybe, because Mr. Zimmerman is so dedicated, and you can tell. Great meeting. I love the discussion, and I love how candid that we can be as a group here. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to do the best we can for the people that we care about. Thank you guys for tonight. Mr. Shreve.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for the meeting. It was good. Had a lot of good stuff on here. I really enjoyed being on the redistricting committee. It was good to learn more about it because it does only happen every 10 years. So it's something that can be overlooked if you're not paying attention. So being able to have it on the ballot to give the residents a choice on whether they want 9 members or 7. Well, it's going to be good to have it on there. And also for the planning commission, I know we got a little more to work on that one, but that'll be good to have it on there to maybe make it a little bit easier for them to actually get stuff done. Because I know with 9, being able to make quorum and things like that gets tough. So
tougher with 5.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for all the comments and the discussion. It was good, but I am very excited about seeing this airport plan come out. I know I've had some people say, well, it could just, having the booklet like this doesn't mean very much, but if somebody's going to put together a glossy booklet like this and put a timeline in there, there's already been some money thought and put into it. So being able to keep up with them and making sure that it's done properly and in the right location for progress in the future, and not boxing ourselves in, and helping them just to see some of the nuances of the area will be beneficial. So I do look forward to hopefully being on a committee, or somebody in the assembly being able to be on a committee to help with guiding and direction and just seeing where it's going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shreve. Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, it was a fun meeting. It's always good. I missed not having one last month.
I did.
And thanks for everybody's participation. That's it.
Great. Mr. Canale, take us home. Oh, he's not here. Just kidding. That's it. Good job, David. All right, so that takes us to the time and place of our next meeting, Wednesday, September 14th at 6 p.m. located at the McKinley Village Community Center.
This is what I like.
We'll be on the
My
road again
close one.
finally. Yeah.
Not you, I'm walking.
Not sure. David's walking. Would entertain.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a good night.
You too.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Have fun, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.